Welcome to Tycoons of Small Biz, a podcast designed for small business owners, the backbone of the American economy. Join us as our hosts Austin and Landon share insights and experiences as small business owners, active investors and operators who have started, bought, sold, and grown several successful businesses. Tycoons is powered by Backbone Planning Partners, a business consulting and wealth management firm built specifically to serve small and medium-sized businesses.
Hello, Tycoons, and welcome to yet another episode of Tycoons of Small Biz. I'm your host, Austin Peterson, joined by my co-host, Landon Mance. Landon, how are you this morning, buddy?
Overall, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing real good. Had a interesting night last night. As you very well know, I've got 4.5-year-old twins, and my son has had some breathing issues. Not chronic ones, but he's had some breathing issues here and there. And last night we were about a minute away from going to the ER again because his oxygen levels were way too low. So we gave him a breathing treatment and some Tylenol, and he chilled out. So that was good. God is great. Our prayers were definitely answered last night because we prayed for a good night's sleep for him and ended up getting it, which was wonderful. So overall, things are good.
That's good to hear. Well, it makes me feel better too that the horrible night's sleep that I had was so that he could have, so that Hendrix could have a great night's sleep. So I'm happy to have done that.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
If that's the reason why, I would do it 100 times over. Those kids deserve it. So
I know you would.
All right. Well, for our audience members who have been with us since the beginning, it's been a long time. It's been 4 years now, a little over 4 years that we've been doing this, and we've changed the format a little bit over time. We've landed on a format we think works well. We've gotten some decent feedback, and so our intention here is to share something that's valuable to business owners. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more on the personal side of things, but the reality is, business owners have personal lives too. Business owners have personal financial lives. Business owners typically have families that they need to take care of. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about personal financial planning. So we won't talk a whole lot about business today because next time we're actually going to talk about your business being part of your financial plan and how important that is and make sure that you factor that in. But we're going to kind of take a step back and look on the personal side today. So Landon, let me toss it over to you and just kind of, tee us off a little bit. Let us know what personal financial planning means to you and kind of how somebody should look at, maybe getting started from the get-go, right? Maybe you don't have any kind of personal financial plan going because you've been focusing on getting your business off the ground, or you just never kind of went back to taking care of that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I will do my best not to go down the rabbit hole of how the business fits into this, because we're going to be talking about that next week. But that's just so natural for you and I, because we have that conversation with our business owner clients and prospective clients, all the time. And just so I'll say this. I'll set the stage with this. This statistic now is thrown around all the time by exit planners, by value growth advisors, by consultants. And the statistic is this: somewhere in the neighborhood of 80% of small to medium-sized businesses that list for sale will never sell. So I think that whether that is totally accurate or not, from experience, we know that it's dang close to that. The vast majority of businesses that attempt to transition, sell, whatever you want to call it just doesn't happen for a myriad of different reasons. But I think that that's really important to know, because for business owners, they fail to do a lot of the personal planning side of things because they are going to be reliant, on their business. And the fact of the matter is that's just not the reality. So you've got to really focus as a business owner on building up I'll just use the word fortress, like building up a fortress personal balance sheet so that you're not just so focused on your business being your retirement nest egg, but that you have also given some love and attention to all the other elements of a personal financial plan that are critical so that everything kind of comes together and works together for you and for your spouse or your significant other and for your children and the rest of your posterity. But that consists of a good investment plan, that consists of a good estate plan, that consists of a good insurance plan. So think life insurance, disability, long-term care, key man risk, having I won't go into the buy sell side of things, but there's also some elements there you got to think about. And how do those all come together? Well, they come together by having a sound, comprehensive financial plan, because that's what a good financial planning team does. Is they start and they lead with planning, and they systematically address all the important elements of a financial plan, which I just kind of listed what those all are. But without having all of those things addressed and accounted for in a financial plan, there's simply just going to be gaps and holes, and most likely it's not going to address and solve all of the issues that we generally want to have solved for our families and our loved ones, when we pass. But also there's the other elements of like, how are all these things addressed while I'm still living.
Yeah, you make some great points there, Landon. The reality is if I had $1 for every time I had a business owner say to me, my business is my retirement plan, right? I'd be massively wealthy. The reality is business owners do view their business as their retirement plan. I'm going to sell this thing at some point, and it's going to be multiple millions of dollars, and that's going to solve all of my financial issues as I go into retirement. And you pointed out at the very beginning of this, the statistics are not in their favor, right? And so, in our day-to-day, we're helping business owners to be part of that 20% and maybe expand that 20% over time by helping businesses get to the point to where they can transact, right? So that's for next week's episode, and we'll talk about that next week. But the reality is we have to plan outside of the business. We have to go in, and we tell our clients this all the time, assume that we will not be able to sell the business. And so how do we deal with your financial independence needs? How do we deal with your short-term needs if something happens to you today, whether you become disabled or you pass away or you need long-term care assistance? You mentioned those things. Insurance is an important part of an overall financial plan. There are lots of firms out there that do investments, right? But if they're just doing investments, that is not financial planning. And everybody, specifically business owners, need a financial plan. And that means the plan is where it starts, right? So it's, okay, what are we doing here? What are we planning for? When do I want to either sell this business, or when do I want to be financially independent? How many kids do I have? Do I want to plan for them to have some sort of help with their vocational school or their college planning, or whatever there? What am I worried about if something happens to me? What am I worried about if something happens to my spouse or my partner, business partner or personal partner, right? So all of that is what planning is. How does the estate planning work, right? Like, The reality is there's three places that your money or your estate can go when you pass away. First is your family, second is the IRS, and third is charity. And planning has to go into that formula to decide, where do I want that to go? You have the choice. But if you don't make a plan, the default may very well be, depending on the size of your estate, that a good portion of your estate goes to the IRS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So obviously you and I have lived in this world for a very long time, but for business owners that don't know how to assess a financial planning, a wealth management, an investment firm, like let's unpack that for a minute to help business owners understand, like, how do they know if a firm actually does real comprehensive financial planning where they take all this stuff, into consideration? Because as you know, the vast majority of financial services firms out there do not do financial planning. They say that they do, but at the end of the day, they use financial planning as a tool to capture investment assets because that is how they get paid. So let's try to educate some business owners on an approach that they can use when they're talking to an investment firm, a financial planning firm, a retirement planning firm, whatever the case may be. Like, let's arm them with some good information and some questions to ask so that they can help, determine for themselves if a company actually does real financial planning and addresses all these important elements. So where would you say that where should we start with that?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's hard. It's really hard to know. I will say that it is becoming more and more common that planning is involved from the get-go, because these investment advisors out there, these other firms are realizing that investments are really hard to have as your differentiator. The reality is, statistically, it's really hard to beat the market, period. Right. And so if an investment firm is hanging their hat on their investment process or the portfolios that they build, and we will beat the market. Well, first of all, what does that mean? Right. In just an up market, or in an up market and a down market? And what happens when you don't beat the market? You set yourself up for those clients to leave, because that's what you hung your hat on is your investment process and how you're different there. Right. It's not that you can't have a different investment process, but basing it on beating the market does not a planning firm make, for sure. So my recommendation would be to any client: spend some time on websites, make some phone calls, ask some questions to find out what it is that they do and how their process works, right? And so if they're talking about the actual planning process, and we will, our first meeting is a discovery process. We will ask you a lot of questions and learn about you, your family, your business, your wishes, your goals, your, whatever. And at that point, we'll ask you for information about the things that you just told us about, so that we can then go back and analyze all of that and come back to you with a plan based on what we see. Right? Because, you mentioned a lot of business owners haven't done any planning at all. Some have done some, but the reality is, I've been doing this 25 years. You've been doing it, call it 15, 40 years between the two of us. There's maybe one time in my entire career that I've sat down with a new prospective client where there wasn't at least one major gap in their financial plan that had not been addressed. Right. And so the reality is, most firms aren't doing a true comprehensive planning process, but at least if they're telling you that's the process they're going to go through, they're going to discover gaps in your financial planning, and they're going to come back to you with an actual plan to say, these are the things that we're seeing. This is what we feel like you need to address. And they're able to do that without talking about product. Then you might have an actual planning firm that leads with planning. Now, I have a feeling that kind of a direction that you're wanting me to go, or thinking that I should go, is, do they charge a fee for that financial plan, right? Now, our firm, we do charge a fee. We believe that it's important to charge a fee for that financial plan, because the planning process is separate from the implementation of the financial plan, right? And so charging that fee for the work that goes into building an actual plan allows us, or any firm for that matter, to be completely unbiased in the plan that they put out there. They're not talking about product in any way, shape, or form. And you can feel comfortable that that's building a plan and there's value in that plan. And we tell our clients, it doesn't happen often, but we tell our clients, if you want to go and implement this plan somewhere else, you can. If you want to use this plan to direct who you're working with on the investment side or the insurance side or whatever, you can, right? But that's what an unbiased plan looks like. And that's why we charge a fee. And it's a pretty good indicator of whether it's a true planning firm or not.
Yeah. Well, I'm having some internet issues, so I hope I'm coming in okay. Yeah, that's definitely kind of one of the directions I was heading in, right? Because if a firm says that they do planning and they do not charge a fee, then I'm just gonna put it pretty bluntly. They're not doing real planning. Because to meet with a new client and to address all of those different elements of a sound financial plan, I mean, it takes us usually, 3 to 5 meetings to do that, and many, many hours of work from us and from our team. So of course we're going to charge for that, because we're putting a lot of hours go into building. And so if a shop says, oh yeah, we do financial planning, and you're like, okay, great, tell me how that process works. Like, how does that unfold? And they come back to you and say, yeah, we have a meeting and we ask you a lot of questions and this and that. And then the next time we get together, we present your plan to you. I would be very weary of that, because like I said, to put together a real plan for a business owner, a successful business owner, that is a minimum of 3 to 5 meetings to say, all right, this is what we've got. Let's talk through this element of the plan. That's going to take us an hour. Next meeting, we're going to talk through this element of the plan. That's going to take an hour. And that happens at least 1 or 2 more times. And then you're going to come back, now that you've got a really, really clear idea of what somebody has going on, kind of A to Z. Now you can start to come to the table with recommendations and considerations and say, hey, this is what we put together. Give us a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or hey, like I still need more information before I commission. And there is absolutely no way that you can get that done in 1 or 2 meetings. Not for a business owner when they've got, just a lot of different things going on.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, is it potentially possible to do that for somebody who, just has a W-2 job and a 401k and 2 kids and whatever, and they brought all of their information with them on the first meeting? Maybe, right? Like, maybe you could do it, but you're absolutely right. When it comes to a business owner, and maybe they've got different entities, maybe they own, the business over here, maybe they own the building over here, maybe they own 2 Airbnb properties, and maybe that, like when you add complications, or they've previously been married, or they have children from a previous relationship, or whatever the case may be, it just complicates things. And you're absolutely right to be able to come back and say, here's your financial plan after the first 1 hour meeting, or even a 90-minute data gathering meeting, which we typically, do just because there's so much to gather. It's likely not a true comprehensive financial plan. So I'm with you 100%, but I would say that some planning is better than no planning. And just putting together and saying, yes, we need to make sure that we open a SEP IRA for you, or a Roth IRA, or, let's buy some life insurance. Like, that's not a financial plan. That's just identifying opportunities for them to sell you something that you probably need, right? Like, it's not that they're not doing something for you that you need, but it's not based on what the plan looks like. It's just kind of pulling from, shooting from the hip, pulling something out of their pocket and saying, you need this much in life insurance. And of course, we need to max fund your SEP IRA or your Roth IRA, or whatever the case may be. So I agree with you on the points there. You there, buddy?
Yeah, sorry. I don't know what's going on with my internet, but I'm having a lot of trouble hearing you. So I'll say something just kind of yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You may want to turn your video off just to kind of help, but yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna do that. All right. Sorry, everybody. Okay, so I thought maybe it would be helpful just to give, an example, and maybe we can each just think of like 1 or 2 examples. And you were saying something, and a thought came to mind, which is like, what happens with a lot of business owners when it comes to the personal planning side of things is that they do things very piecemeal, and it serves a need, right? Because like you said, they probably need to get something done. Like let's talk about life insurance for a second. They probably need some life insurance. So the need is there, but it's done in a vacuum. And so what happens is, like, let's talk about life insurance in the estate for a second. So a lot of business owners, get life insurance. I'm going to say that they're generally sold life insurance, and typically it's not structured correctly. It's generally owned inside of the estate for the business owner. And so we all know that for the most part, life insurance proceeds are tax-free. But when those life insurance proceeds end up inside of your estate, they now can be taxable at the estate tax level. So now that number is really large. It's about to change, most likely here in the next 12 to 18 months. But that's just one little instance where we see that it's just not structured properly, and it's just not done in the true sense of understanding somebody's situation from A to Z. And when it's done in a vacuum, it can create issues that not only does the business owner not know about, but even the person that is selling or placing a product, in a business owner's situation, like, they don't even generally know that they are creating big, long-term, big picture issues, down the road. So is there one other example that you can think of that we could point out for business owners to be aware of as they start to think through some of these things?
Yeah, I think that's a big one, right? Is people don't realize it, right? They'll look at it and say, let's say that the estate tax exclusion next year drops to 6 million, right? And they're like, well, my business is only worth 5, but they've got a $3 million life insurance policy. Well, that pays into the estate. Now all of a sudden you've got an $8 million estate. And so everything above the $2 million is subject to estate tax at 40% due within 9 months of the passing. Right. So it's a really, really big problem that if it's not set up and structured appropriately, and like you said, done in a vacuum, it can cause major financial planning and estate planning problems where money's going somewhere that you didn't want it to go because it didn't have to. Right. So another example that I can think of that is definitely on the estate planning side as well, is just taking advantage of the exclusion, right? And understanding that the planning has to be done appropriately. So we have a client of ours who's about to inherit, sometime in the next, whatever, call it 0 to 5 years, is gonna inherit a large amount of money. Like we're talking tens of millions of dollars, right? But the planning wasn't done appropriately before this client's father passed away. And so the estate exclusion for the father wasn't utilized. And so you're stuck with just the estate exclusion for the mother. And they've used gifting and they've done everything that they could to kind of get things out of the estate. But the reality is, in today's exclusion area, you're leaving essentially $14 million on the table that wasn't taken advantage of purely because the estate planning was not done appropriately while that father was still alive. And so now, excuse me, this client of ours is going to inherit, like I said, tens of millions of dollars. But the reality is there's going to be an estate tax due of also tens of millions of dollars purely because the planning wasn't done appropriately way back when, before the father passed away. So it can really be a big deal. And I know, anybody who's listening would love to still inherit tens of millions of dollars after having paid tens of millions of dollars to the IRS, right? But it doesn't have to be that way. If the planning is done appropriately, the money can go where you want it to go. Right. And so it just comes down to making sure that the planning is done the right way in time to have an impact on the family. And there are so many people out there, business owners and not alike, that just don't understand how a basic AB trust works and taking care of that exclusion when the first spouse passes.
Yeah. Good point. We could wrap off a million examples here, but I think, all right, in closing, I'll just say this. Financial planning is not a transaction. Financial planning is a fluid, ongoing process that has to happen, at least yearly, sometimes much more frequently than that, because as we have seen in our practice, just the last 3 to 6 months, that we've had clients, pass away, clients getting sick. We've had a lot of things transpire in the last 6 months to where the planning is happening like monthly, because things are happening and changing inside of a family so quickly that if you're not staying on top of things, then stuff is going to start to slip through the cracks. The small issues become magnified and become large issues really quickly if you're not staying on top of planning. So just remember, as entrepreneurs, guys and gals, planning is very much an ongoing thing. And you should be meeting with your advisor, at least once or twice a year. And if your situation is pretty complicated and maybe some things are transpiring quickly, that's probably more like a quarterly meeting that you need to have. so that your advisor can stay on top of what's going on. They can collaborate with your other advisors and coordinate with them, because certainly your, financial advisor or your, financial planner does not have all of the answers to everything that is happening in your life when it comes to the, financial aspects. So you got to rope in other advisors. So just stay on top of things. Remember that it's very much a fluid process, and you got to be getting all your advisors together at least one time a year so that everybody is on the same page, rowing in the same direction, all for the benefit of you, your family, and your business.
Yeah, great point, Landon. I want to actually just make sure we drive that home, what you just said there, because it's a big part. We didn't mention it at the beginning, but if anybody that you're meeting with as a financial advisor does not talk to you about the importance of collaborating with your other advisors and being willing and able to meet with at least you and your CPA together at the same time in the same meeting on an annual basis, that should be an indication that that's not the right advisor for you either. So, just a couple of other things I'll mention real quick, and then we'll wrap up here. And that's that, life happens, things change, right? I mean, just in the last 6 months, like Landon mentioned, we've had clients pass away. We've had clients be on short-term disability. We've had clients acquire other businesses. We've had clients acquire other pieces of property. We've had clients get divorced. All of those things are life change. We've had clients have kids, grandkids, like all of those life changes are things that need to amend and change your financial planning. Financial planning is a dynamic process. It's not a do your financial plan one time and you're done. So, Landon makes great points there. Meet with them on a regular basis, at least once a year. Most of our clients meet with us more often than once a year, but their situations are more complicated. So, take that to heart. Make sure that you're getting out there, you're putting together a financial plan, meeting with somebody that is truly doing a financial plan for you and understands the importance of financial planning, is putting you first as the client, not their ability to make money from you on some sort of product that they're going to sell to you. So we really appreciate you guys listening. We love putting these episodes out there. We love putting advice out there that helps the small business owner community. It really is the backbone of the American economy. We stand up for it day in and day out, and we love working with business owners throughout the country. So thanks for listening.
Listening to Tycoons of Small Biz, a podcast for small business owners by small business owners. Be sure to follow us on our social media channels for links to all our episodes and great content around growing, investing in, buying, and selling small businesses. This podcast is distributed for informational purposes only. Statements made in the podcast are not to be construed as personalized investment or financial planning advice, may not be suitable for everyone, and should not be considered as solicitation to engage in any particular investing or planning strategy. Listeners should conduct their own review and exercise judgment, or consult with their professional financial advisor to see how the information contained in this podcast may apply to their own individual circumstances. All investing involves risk of loss, including the possible loss of principal. Past performance does not guarantee future results, and nothing in this podcast should be construed as a guarantee of any specific outcome or profit. All market indices discussed are unmanaged, do not incur management fees, costs, and expenses, and cannot be invested into directly. Investment advisory services offered by Backbone Planning Partners, LLC. Neither Backbone Planning Partners, LLC, nor its representatives provide legal or accounting advice. The content of this podcast represents the views and opinions of Austin Peterson and Landon Mance, and/or the podcast guest, and do not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Backbone Planning Partners, LLC. Statements made in this podcast are subject to change without notice. Neither Backbone Planning Partners, LLC, nor its representatives, the podcast host,